On a more personal note, von Franz tells the story of how she came to build her tower retreat, the setting for this film, and the meaning of this place for her creative life and for her ongoing work with the psyche. Jung's tower in Bollingen has been, he has spoken of it as the place where he really lived the self.
In the second person, yes, or the self, yes.
And there came a point in his life when that was important, to sacrifice some outer interests.
Yes.
And I was interested in his insisting on your building a tower at a certain point. You wanted to wait. You thought later would be fine. And he said, no, do it now. How do you feel about that now? Was he right?
Well, he saved this whole situation, because a year later, after I built this, they made building areas. And this is not a building area. So if I had waited a year, this tower would never exist. And Jung's intuition, parapsychological intuition, he didn't know that rationally, but he must have felt.
Do you write here in your tower?
I do only, my writing I do only here. I can't do it in Lindenberg, where there's a telephone and the people and so on. I couldn't do it. That's why I stay a lot here to write. It's the only place I can get into myself enough and, continuously enough, without interruption. And the unconscious comes up much more. I have much more dreams when I'm here than down in Küsnacht. And I thought for a long time, I still remember looking over the lake there and thinking, and either this man is crazy or I am too stupid to understand what he means. And then suddenly it dawned on me, he means that what happens psychically is the real reality. And this other moon, this stony desert which goes around the earth, that's illusion, or that's only pseudo-reality. And that hit me tremendously deeply. When I crawled rather drunk into bed because he gave us a lot of burgundy, that evening I thought it'll take you 10 years to digest what you experienced today. After all, an analysis is a very intimate exchange of personality, so it would be ridiculous to leave each other afterwards and, not having known each other, so to speak, if it has been an honest analysis, where both partners have been honestly involved in it.
You mentioned when you were in the States recently that Jung had a vision at the end of his life of a catastrophe. Can you speak about that a little bit? It was a world catastrophe.
I don't want to speak much about it, but he tried to convey to his family some things, and when he was dying, and they didn't get the point, so he called for me, but they wouldn't call me. But one of his daughters took notes, and after his death gave it. And there's a drawing with a line going down, up and down, and underneath is the last 50 years of humanity. And some remarks about the final catastrophe being ahead.
You spoke about playing with Jung once by the lake. Did you do that from time to time?
Yes.
He liked to play.
He played a lot, and he did it very often alone. And one of his favorite play was along the lake. There is the shore like that, and then going down, and then the water comes, and there's a gravel zone, and that is sometimes covered by water. But in spring and autumn, it's free. And when it's free, then little springs come out of that border, tiny little springs. And then he took always a little shovel and dug them up and removed the sand, and then played with little rivers and so on. And he said when he was 83, he said one day when we were playing, I was generally sitting on my haunches beside him and watching him and playing a bit with him. And he said to me, only today I have suddenly thought, what am I doing when I'm playing like that? That's what I have done all my life, digging out springs. But you see, he really didn't even reflect on what he was doing. He was just enjoying that. He called it the waterworks. And always before he was writing, he did some days or even weeks of waterworks till he was in the right mood, and then he began writing. And somehow, for some pleasant reason for me, he allowed me to participate. So I sat sometimes for hours beside him, just watching, not talking. Once an old peasant went along and said to me, isn't this Professor Jung not a world-famous man? And I said, yes, he is. And he said, wouldn't think it if you see him like that.
Do you play now yourself?
Yes. I play mostly with my toad pond. You see that, you have seen that pond outside, and there is a very rare type of toads in it, which you only find in the Prealp, Austrian Prealps and Swiss Prealps, nowhere else in the whole of Europe. And they are toads which do not croak, but make a beautiful bell sound, coo, 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 like that. And so I play mostly with those toads.
Somehow that feels to me as if that would help me with the Animus myself.
Oh, yes.
The play.
Yes. The Animus is always dramatic and serious.
I thought that was the Anima.
The Anima can be dramatic and serious, but she can also be whining or hummingbird, making hummingbird noises. Or she has another melody.
This was filmed in the tower retreat she had built for herself in Bollingen. She told me that Jung had encouraged her to build this tower, following his own example, in order to provide herself with the quiet and protected space she needed for her creative work and for her ongoing relationship to the psyche.
Hermes Trismegistus said in one active imagination to an alchemist, I am the friend of whoever is lonely. The unconscious doesn't speak to you when you are with people. Your attention goes to the people. Mm-hmm. Well, when you are lonely, I've lived in this tower sometimes 3 weeks alone without speaking to one word to anybody. And I sometimes thought I was going off my head. Mm-hmm. But the unconscious became alive. Mm-hmm. It was my partner. And that's why you have to be lonely, so that the unconscious becomes stronger. It's like loading up the unconscious, and then it manifests. And then you are not lonely anymore. So we have to support the unconscious. It's not enough to just have it. We have to actively turn towards it and support it so that it then helps us.
Here's a dream that shows the animus in a highly negative form, chastising the dreamer and driving her into a state of bitter isolation.
So that is the classical image of the destructive animus. If a woman cannot escape these self-destructive and self-annihilating thoughts, it might even lead to a severe psychological disturbance, or at least such women who can't escape their bluebeard become generally isolated, bitter women who have no men loving them and find no partner and live in bitter isolation, if not worse situation.
Now we move on to animus, the Latin word for spirit. It personifies the logos, the rational thinking function. If a woman is married to him in his dark aspect, that is, she may be married to him in fact, she may also be married to him within herself, probably both. It may make her rigid and opinionated. She thinks she knows everything. When she's alone, she thinks she knows nothing. Her aloneness feels like ice and glass to herself and to others. because her ideas are not her own.
After all said and done, what every human being really craves is simply to love and be loved. We've created artificial hearts and put men in the moon, but no one's ever figured out what makes a human relationship work. It should be easy. We've got single bars, computerized dating, sexual freedom. But there's not a day goes by when a psychoanalyst doesn't see a person with a lonely heart.
That can be interpreted in two ways. One can interpret it as relating to the fate of women, or relating it to the fate of the anima of a man.